Okay, Chris, let's get going.
All right.
So let's start off with the post about Teddy Cook. So what prompted you to make that post, and what inspired you to post that statement?
Well, I read the Daily Mail article, and at the time on the cover of that Daily Mail article, they actually had a picture that Teddy Cook had posted to social media of a dog having sex with a man. And look, I want nothing but the best for everybody, but Teddy Cook is an individual who has been promoting bondage and bestiality, advised that trans-identified people have better sex when they're high on illicit drugs. And I don't think that this is the type of person who should be appointed to a panel of health experts at the World Health Organization to write the healthcare guidelines for people who are struggling with a variety of mental health comorbidities. If you look at the children and young adults who show up at these gender clinics, a huge percentage of them are on the autism spectrum. A ton of them have suffered sexual abuse. The experts who I've talked to on this subject estimate that probably 60 to 70% of the kids who end up transitioning have suffered sexual abuse of some kind. There's always some other mental health comorbidity. There's trauma and abuse. And a lot of these kids as well, if you look at all the historical studies into gender dysphoria, a lot of them grow up to be gay. And so these kids who are being transitioned today don't just need to have it affirmed that they were born in the wrong body, which I think is a very abusive thing to tell a child. We shouldn't be teaching children, or anybody for that matter, that they were born wrong and that they need to be something they're not. We should be telling them they're beautiful just as they are. No drugs or scalpels needed. But individuals who are struggling with mental health conditions of their own, in my estimation, are now crafting the health guidelines for other individuals who have mental health struggles, and I don't think that's right.
And Chris, what was the reaction to the post as it circulated online?
Well, it's pretty self-evident, I think, that most people agree with this statement. We should be doing evidence-based care, and everyone wants what's best for all of these people. But what's going on today is we have ideological biases. These people with ideological biases are drafting the guidelines for the healthcare for people who are struggling with a variety of issues. And no matter what else is going on in these people's lives, we now just treat gender as though it's the source of all of their underlying problems. And that, of course, is total madness. And this UN health panel, this WHO health panel of 20 so-called experts, most of them are just activists. A minority of them are actual doctors. And there is nobody who was assigned to that panel who is critical of so-called gender-affirming care. We have several countries in the world now, not the politicians who have put a stop to this, but the professional pediatricians, after having conducted systematic reviews of all of the scientific literature in England, in Sweden, in Finland, Denmark, Norway, and just a couple weeks ago in Germany, they conducted a systematic review of all of the evidence and found that this isn't helping children psychologically when we transition them. So what the heck are we doing? Sterilizing kids, maiming them, and turning them into lifelong pharmaceutical patients. I don't think that's loving and kind, and I don't think people who are biased, who think that there's only one way to treat these children and young adults, should be appointed to these committees. And at the very least, we should have a balance. There should be a pushback going on, because anytime there has been an actual review of the scientific evidence, when we get away from ideology and we get back to actual science, we've always found that this isn't helping these children.
When did you find out about the E-Safety Commissioner's decision, and how did it make you feel, Chris?
Well, I thought it was kind of funny, to be honest with you. I was just getting ready for bed, actually, when I checked out my email, and the legal department at X had forwarded me on the complaint that they had received. It was just an attachment with the complaint sent by the E-Safety Commissioner's office. I didn't know there was such an office. And they were ordering the post to be taken down. So I don't think any unelected bureaucrat, or any elected bureaucrat for that matter, should be determining what we're allowed to say online. Is Julie Inman Grant going to determine what is acceptable speech for all 8 billion people on the planet? I'm sitting here on the other side of the planet, and she's determining that my post hurt somebody's feelings, so it needs to come down. But this is a very controversial topic, It's not about hate. There are a variety of opinions on this matter, and we should be able to express our opinions. I want nothing but the best for anybody. There was no incitement to violence or anything like that. This is just my opinion, and I'm entitled to it.
And do you feel like you've been unfairly censored? If you can explain sort of the difference between free speech and inciting violence?
I don't think it is appropriate for anyone to order that post to be taken down. I think freedom of speech is extremely important in society because it's a very slippery slope. As soon as some individual starts determining what is appropriate for anybody to say, well, where does that end? Where do we draw the line? How is it that this person is able to determine what's acceptable? She obviously has her own biases as well. I think one of the only other posts she's ordered taken down was a post about men breastfeeding. And obviously, most people in the world don't think men should be breastfeeding, but for some reason, that was the post that was ordered to be taken down. It seems to me like Julia Mingrant is a trans activist herself. But we shouldn't have anyone determining what speech is acceptable or not. X have their own policies that people need to follow. Of course, incitements to violence aren't appropriate. No one should ever do that. That's not what I'm doing at all. I'm strictly offering an opinion that I think people with mental health comorbidities shouldn't be advising other people with mental health comorbidities.
Would you say this was simply censorship gone too far? Does it make you worried where the world is heading with posts like this are being taken down?
Yes, 100% this is censorship gone too far. We see censorship bills, so-called hate speech bills, being drafted in countries all around the world. They're all very similar. We just saw one passed in Scotland that went into effect on April 1st. And J.K. Rowling beautifully challenged that law by telling the truth about some dangerous males who are now identifying as females. But the truth is not hate. The truth is kindness, if anything. And when we are forced to go along with an ideology that goes against our personal beliefs, and we're not allowed to say what we truly believe, and we're not allowed to talk about a situation where children are coming to lifelong harm, well, of course, that's censorship that has gone too far. This is an ideology. This is a belief system. Gender ideology is a belief system, and we don't all have to go along with it. As far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as misgendering. The only pronouns we should ever use are the pronouns associated with someone's sex. Because for me, this is a cult that has spread throughout the Western world. When you look at it, it has all the hallmarks of a cult. The people who believe in it self-police their own thoughts. They don't allow themselves to look at the truth or the actual evidence. And as soon as we start going along with a lie that a woman can be a man or a man can be a woman, we've got one foot inside the door of this cult, and we're lending legitimacy to a movement which is harming hundreds of thousands of children around the globe.
Chris, final question from me. It's a bit of a different one. So we're hoping to introduce you in our segment as sort of saying, this is Chris, and we're hoping you can bring that. So
Sure.
What I ask of you is if you can sort of say, I'm Chris, and sort of explain why you're referred to as Billboard Chris, if that's okay.
Sure. Hi, so I'm Chris Elston, otherwise known as Billboard Chris, and I am on a mission to end what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in the history of modern medicine, the business of giving children puberty blockers, opposite sex hormones, and doing surgeries on them as well, depending on the jurisdiction you're in around the world. I believe the message we should be sending children is that there's no right way to be a boy or a girl, that they're beautiful just as they are. If a girl wants to climb trees and chase lizards or kangaroos or giant Australian spiders, well, she's still a beautiful girl. Tomboys are still beautiful girls. They are not boys. And to tell a child that they were born wrong is psychologically abusive, never mind the actual physical harm that is coming to these children. We should be letting them grow up. It's not unusual for a child to have distress about their sex, but a child who's 10, 11, 12 years old obviously is not able to give informed consent to drugs and procedures which leave them sterilized and turn them into lifelong pharmaceutical patients. So I'm on a mission of love to protect these kids. If someone wants to do something as an adult, that's a totally different conversation, but we need to leave the kids alone.
We might do, that was great. One more version of that, if you can sort of say,
Sure.
as you said.
I can shorten it up.
And if Yeah, that would be great. And,
Sure.
and sort of say, I use
Oh,
my
I didn't say
platform
why I'm
to...
Billboard Chris. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's okay. We'll give it a go. Thanks,
Sure.
Chris.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Billboard Chris, and I'm on a mission to end what I consider to be child abuse all across the world, the business of trying to change the sex of children. And I have my nickname because I go outside into the real world and I have conversations with people. I wear a sign that says children cannot consent to puberty blockers, or one which is my definition of a dad, which is a human male who protects his kids from gender ideology. And I just stand quietly and I wait for people to approach me and have a conversation. And I've been doing this for 3.5 years now, having one conversation at a time in order to educate the populace about why we should be leaving these children alone. There is no such thing as a transgender child. They're called girls and boys, and they're beautiful just as they are. No drugs or scalpels needed.
That was great, Chris. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your patience and time this evening for yourself. Yeah, I will look into having that sent to you. Tapes were all done. Thank you very much. You've been in contact with Faye today.
Yeah.
I may take over. She may be finishing up, but if not Faye, myself will be in contact with you about that. And as I said earlier, so this will go live our time, 6:30, but I'm sure you'll be asleep by then. I'd assume so.
Well, I have to write a chapter
so
for a book,
do...
so I might be up all night.
Okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
We'll send those socials through as well. So that will be the finished clip as well.
Great. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, Chris. Of course.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye.